The ancient wooden fence tilted ever so slightly more precariously with the arrival of each new spring. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Linda, and I've been intending to have it repaired for, quite frankly, longer than I'd like to confess. It transcended mere property lines, marking a division not only of land but of lives, a silent testament to the complexities of neighborly relations. It seemed to be yet another item on the ever-growing list of burdens I struggled to bear alone since Michael's departure. At 48, she, referring to Linda, grappled with the paradox of feeling too young to bear the weight of widowhood while simultaneously feeling too old to be mastering the art of taming a wobbly fence post. The Millers, along with Jessica and David, were the kind of neighbors who preferred the gentle embrace of solitude, maintaining a serene presence in their corner of the world, generally, yet accompanied by a warm wave of greeting. On Saturday mornings, David often found himself tending to his own yard, much like Michael once did. At times, the symmetry of it, the haunting reflection of my former routines echoing from next door, would strike a chord within me. On that specific Saturday, the sun was steadily ascending, heralding a day filled with warmth. There I sat on the patio, coffee cradled in my hand, gazing intently at that pesky fence. The sag had undoubtedly intensified. One of the posts appeared to be performing a graceful, slow-motion bow to the rose bushes. A deep sigh escaped my lips, the sound consumed by the chirping of small, lively birds flitting about. I received a quote from a handyman, and to be honest, it brought tears to my eyes. Since I embarked on this journey alone, finances have become increasingly constrained. At that moment, the unmistakable sound of David's lawnmower came to an abrupt halt. In the next instant, his voice resonated through the air. "Good morning, Linda. What a lovely day it is, wouldn't you agree?" I mustered a smile. "Good morning, David. It is, provided you don't examine my fence too intently." He let out a soft, effortless laugh. He strolled toward the boundary of the property, using the back of his hand to wipe the sweat from his brow. David was a handful of years my senior, perhaps in his mid-50s, possessing that weathered, capable demeanor that certain men possess. His hair shimmered with shades of silver, while his eyes sparkling with a gentle, clear blue. Indeed, I came across that post signaling the end of an era. Intricate matters, the aged wooden ones. "Do share," I remarked, lifting my cup for another sip of the rich brew. "I have been procrastinating on addressing it." He narrowed his eyes at it, then turned his gaze toward me. "Listen, Linda, I have a post puller and a few tools at my disposal. I had envisioned a serene afternoon, yet if time is on your side, I would be glad to lend you a hand with that. We might as well publish that unfavorable post and gauge your thoughts contending with." I found myself momentarily stunned. The offer was imbued with a remarkable kindness. "Oh, David, I simply couldn't bring myself to request that of you. The weekend has arrived." "Nonsense," he declared, gesturing with a dismissive wave of his hand. With Jessica heading to her sister's for the afternoon, I find myself at a bit of a loose end. After all, what purpose do neighbors serve? Progress will be swifter with a pair of hands at work, even if one is primarily tasked with handing over tools. He smiled, a true warmth radiating from his expression, illuminating his eyes. A subtle flutter of emotion coursed through me, perhaps relief, perhaps a hint of nervousness. "Indeed, if you are certain, I would be deeply appreciative. I can certainly ensure you have a steady supply of iced tea." "It appears to be a reasonable exchange," he remarked. "Let me grab my gear. I'll be over shortly." With that, he vanished into his garage, leaving me standing there for a moment, somewhat taken aback. It had been an eternity since anyone had extended a hand in such a selfless manner, devoid of any ulterior motives. Michael had always been the one to mend things, the individual who took on these types of tasks. In his absence, I found myself either hiring help or struggling on my own, each day amplifying my sense of inadequacy. Indeed, true to his promise, roughly 20 minutes later, David arrived at my gate, burdened with a substantial post puller, a shovel, a level, and a toolbox that bore the marks of many past endeavors. He donned a well-worn, faded blue t-shirt paired with jeans, exuding an air of complete comfort. "Very well," he remarked, placing his belongings on the surface. "Let us evaluate the patient." We stood together, gazing at the troublesome post. It had decayed at the base, precisely as I had anticipated. "Indeed, she's beyond saving," David proclaimed. Yet, there lies a silver lining. The surrounding posts appeared to be in good condition. It seemed we might only need to replace this one and perhaps strengthen the next. His composed evaluation brought a sense of reassurance. He refrained from framing it as a disaster. Instead, he presented it as merely a task to be accomplished. For the next hour or so, we toiled, or more accurately, David toiled, while I endeavored to lend my support. I gathered items, swept aside the remnants, and hurried to my shed in search of fragments he believed could prove valuable. He exhibited remarkable patience, articulating his actions, and the rationale behind the choice of a particular tool proved to be more effective for a specific task. He never made me feel foolish for being unaware of the distinction between a lag bolt and a carriage bolt. The sun ascended, casting its warm glow as the air became laden with the rich aroma of freshly turned soil and freshly cut timber. Our conversations were sparse, lacking depth. We focused solely on the task before us, exchanging brief remarks about the weather or sharing a laugh when a particularly obstinate route proved unyielding. Yet, the silence held no awkwardness. It was a shared experience, filled with warmth and understanding. It was the quietude of two individuals striving for a shared objective. He possessed an unexpected strength, his motions both economical and efficient. At times, I caught myself observing his hands, strong, weathered hands that were intimately familiar with the dance of tools. A subtle assurance emanated from him, one that I had not fully acknowledged until now. Beholding him from a distance across the yard at noon, the old post had finally been removed, resting on the grass like a fallen soldier. David stood tall, brushing the sweat from his brow with his forearm. "I believe we've earned that iced tea now, Linda." On the way, I replied, a warmth radiated within me, unrelated to the sun. It was the embrace of genuine human connection, the camaraderie of a collective endeavor, the surprise of unanticipated kindness. As I stepped inside to prepare the drinks, I noticed a slight tremor in my hands. Not due to effort, but rather from another source. An emotion that had eluded me for what felt like an eternity. A blend of gratitude and an unusual, subtle stirring of feelings emerged, reminiscent of a neglected garden unexpectedly revealing a handful of tentative green shoots. A neighbor was simply lending a hand to another, yet it seemed to encompass so much more. We lingered on my modest patio, sheltered beneath the worn canvas umbrella, savoring tall glasses of iced tea infused with a generous squeeze of lemon. The silence returned, yet it bore a new quality, a gentle softness enveloping the air. The most arduous tasks, the digging and pulling, had been completed. David had positioned a makeshift support beneath the fence rail, rendering it far less concerning. "You know," David remarked, swirling the ice in his glass. "My father, Robert, often remarked that repairing fences was fundamentally about healing souls. Maintained though with hands engaged and thoughts unclouded." My gaze fell upon him. Truly observed him. His cerulean gaze bore a contemplative look. "He appears to possess great wisdom." "Robert certainly had his moments," David remarked, a faint smile playing on his lips. He reclined in his chair, gazing at my somewhat unruly flower beds. "Jessica constantly chides me about our garden, claiming I devote more time to repairs than to planting. Each individual possesses their own unique gifts." I remarked, "You certainly excel in the art of repair." "My Michael, he was the one who tended to the garden. I make an effort, yet it seems the weeds prevail more often than not." Pronouncing Michael's name came effortlessly to him, simpler than it had been with the majority of others. David inclined his head with a measured deliberation. It's challenging when you lose your accomplice for those endeavors. Jessica's the strategist, the one who orchestrates. I'm the one who puts in the effort, he laughed. On most days, we form a commendable partnership. His words carried a warmth of sincerity. He wasn't seeking sympathy or attempting to intrude. He was merely conversing. In that moment, I felt a deep yearning to express myself, to unveil the subtle beauty of the serene landscape that is my own existence. It is challenging, I concurred. My voice is a touch more delicate than I meant. At times, the stillness within the walls resonates more profoundly than any sound, much like the seemingly trivial task of mending this fence. They appear to accumulate, a poignant reminder of what is absent. He locked eyes with me, and in that moment, a deep understanding passed between us. A gesture of compassion that transcended language. He refrained from offering empty words. No, he has found peace. Or perhaps time mends every scar. He simply absorbed the words. His presence served as a steadfast anchor in the gentle embrace of the warm afternoon. I can imagine, he said quietly. My dad, Robert, passed a few years before I met Jessica, my mom, Helen. She struggled for a long time with the silent space beside him on the bed lingered in the air. His candidness, shared without hesitation, moved me deeply. It was a fleeting insight into his world, a tender expression of his own encounters with loss. Our conversation meandered further into the contours of our lives, not delving into specifics, but rather sketching the outlines of our journeys. He spoke of his adult children, one residing on the East Coast and the other a few hours away, still within the state. I offered a glimpse into my own path, recounting my years as a librarian before stepping back to care for Michael. The conversation flowed effortlessly, as if we had been friends for ages rather than mere acquaintances standing on either side of the fence we were now repairing. There was an absence of pretense, no hint of awkwardness, just two individuals exchanging snippets of their Saturday, sharing fragments of their lives. As the afternoon progressed and the sun began its languid descent, stretching shadows across the lawn, David rose to his feet. Well, I should probably let you have your evening, Linda. We can continue this tomorrow if you'd like. I'll get a new post set in concrete. It'll need a day or two to. We must allow the cure to set properly before we attach the rails. Tomorrow would be delightful, David, I expressed, my sincerity evident. The prospect of another day filled with tranquil companionship and collaborative effort was unexpectedly enticing. I truly can't express my gratitude enough. You've been a lifesaver. He shrugged with good humor, pleased to assist, and the iced tea was exceptional. He gathered his tools, and I accompanied him to the gate. Let me know what I owe you for the post and the concrete mix when you acquire them, I mentioned. We'll sort it out, he responded with ease. Don't you worry about that. He paused at the gate, then turned back to me, a hint of something I couldn't quite decipher in his eyes. It was nice, Linda, talking with you. It was for me, too, David, I said, my voice now steady, the earlier tremor giving way to a gentle warmth. He nodded once, acknowledging my words, before making his way back across the lawn. I observed him retreat, a tall, capable silhouette fading into the cool embrace of his trees. Turning my attention back to my yard, I regarded the temporarily reinforced fence. It appeared improved already, more hopeful. I returned indoors, the house feeling a touch less hollow than it had that morning. As I rinsed our iced tea glasses, I observed my hands were still once more. Yet, the sensation within me, that quiet, unexpected stirring, lingered on. It transcended the mere act of mending a fence. It was about a bond forged, an afternoon shared that had somehow, in a subtle way, shifted something deep inside me. I felt a sense of anticipation for the following day, not solely for the fence to be properly repaired, but for the simple, the unassuming presence of my neighbor's husband. It stirred a surprising sensation within me, a touch unsettling yet undeniably present. As I reflected on the day, the effortless dialogue, the collaborative tasks, the silent understanding in his gaze, I sensed a different kind of tremor beginning, a gentle quiver of hope, of possibility awakening in a corner of my heart I believed had long been dormant. The following morning arrived bright and clear, just as the weatherman had foretold. I awoke with a feeling I hadn't known in years, a buoyancy and almost eager anticipation. It was Sunday, typically a day of tranquility for me, often laced with a hint of melancholy as the weekend drew to a close and the prospect of another solitary week loomed ahead. Yet today held a different promise. Today, David was returning to complete the fence. I ensured I was up and dressed, with a fresh pot of coffee brewing long before I anticipated his arrival. I even found myself humming a little tune, one that had slipped from my mind for years, as I moved about the kitchen. Glancing at my reflection in the microwave door, I noticed a slight flush on my cheeks and her eyes sparkled with an unusual brightness. It felt absurd. I reassured myself that he was merely being a considerate neighbor. Yet, my heart was indifferent to rational justifications. Around 9, I recognized the sound of his pickup truck rolling to a stop, not in his driveway, but right out front. Moments later, he appeared at the gate, a new wooden post balanced on his shoulder and a couple of bags of concrete mix clutched in his hand. He exuded that same calm, capable demeanor. "Morning, Linda," he greeted, his voice radiating warmth akin to the morning sun. "Prepared for the next round?" "Morning, David." "I'm more than ready," I replied, a genuine smile lighting up my face. "The coffee's fresh. If you'd like a cup before we begin." "That sounds good," he replied, placing his burden just inside the gate. "Lead the way." We found ourselves once more on the patio, mirroring yesterday's scene, cradling our coffee cups. The initial awkwardness I had anticipated, questioning whether yesterday's effortless connection had been a mere coincidence, was conspicuously absent. It exuded a sense of ease and familiarity. We engaged in trivial conversations, the squirrel that persistently invading Jessica's bird feeder, the predictions for the week ahead. He noted that Jessica had embarked on an extended bike ride with her group earlier this morning. He placed his mug on the table. "All right, let's plant this post before the heat sets in." Today's work unfolded in a manner unlike any other, more focused on precision than on sheer force. David carefully gauged the depth of the hole, making certain it was precisely as needed. He demonstrated the art of mixing concrete, guiding me toward the ideal consistency, neither too wet nor too dry. I became utterly engrossed attending to his words, observing the movements of his hands as he crafted. A cadence emerged, a gratifying feeling of bringing something into existence. He instructed me to keep the post steady as he meticulously poured the concrete around its base, tamping it down and checking the level from every angle with precision. "This is the pivotal moment," he declared, his brow knitted in deep thought. "Establish the post correctly, and the remainder of the fence will align seamlessly. Make a mistake, and you'll find yourself battling against it at every turn." I sensed a certain wisdom woven into that experience, and a smile graced my lips, much like many other matters, I suppose. He cast a fleeting glance in my direction, an expression of immediate comprehension passing between us, precisely akin to numerous other matters. We collaborated effortlessly, each of us in sync with the other. He would request a tool, and I would instinctively understand which one he referred to. I would present a cloth to dab his forehead before he even became aware of the necessity. It was a silent choreography of collaboration, a subtle symphony that enveloped my modest backyard. The atmosphere was saturated with the aroma of moist soil, stone, and the delicate, sugary fragrance of honeysuckle winding its way up the trellis beside me. With the post firmly in place, secured, and standing true, David took a step back, hands resting on his hips, a satisfied expression illuminating his features. "There, that's firmly in place for quite some time. It looks absolutely splendid, David," I remarked. I truly meant it. Though it was merely a solitary fence post, it resonated as a testament to something far greater. You possess an extraordinary gift." He let out a soft chuckle. "It's not so much a miracle as it is a blend of expertise and diligent effort." He gazed at me, his blue eyes warm with kindness. "Linda, you are an excellent assistant. You possess a remarkable talent for foreseeing the requirements." His compliment enveloped me in warmth, surpassing even the gentle embrace of the morning sun. "Thank you, David. It was truly enjoyable, to be honest." "Me too," he said, his gaze lingering just a heartbeat longer than required, an unspoken recognition of the delightful moments we had experienced together. We tidied the tools, coiled the hose, and for a moment we simply stood there, appreciating the fruits of our labor. The remaining sections of the fence appeared somewhat weary when juxtaposed with the robust new post and the freshly turned soil that surrounded it. Yet, it marked the beginning, a clear enhancement. "It will require a day or two to set," David remarked. "Next, we shall proceed to reattach the rails. Perhaps Tuesday afternoon, if you have some time, I could swing by after work." "Tuesday would be perfect," I remarked. The mere idea of encountering him once more, of collaborating on yet another endeavor, stirred a delicate flutter within me. As he readied himself to depart, stowing his tools back into the truck, a thought suddenly occurred to me. It may have been a touch audacious, yet the past couple of days had imbued me with a serene assurance I hadn't experienced in quite some time. "David," I started with a hint of uncertainty. "In appreciation, I would like to extend a proper thank you. Would you and Jessica be interested in joining me for dinner one evening? Once the fence is complete, I may not be a culinary expert, but I can whip up a pretty good lasagna." He paused, then turned, a genuine smile illuminating his face. "Linda, that's a delightful offer. I'm certain that Jessica would find great pleasure in that." "That would be greatly appreciated." "Very well," I replied, joy and relief welling within. "Let's choose a Tuesday for your visit." "That seems like a solid idea," he remarked. With a last wave, he vanished into the distance, the distant rumble of his truck gradually disappearing down the street. I stepped back into the familiar embrace of my home. In that moment, the silence was neither loud nor oppressive. A serene calm enveloped the moment. The dwelling appeared to exhale in harmony with my own breath. I approached the kitchen window, my gaze drawn to the new post, standing resolute and unwavering. It transcended the mere status of a wooden structure embedded in concrete. It stood as a testament to a bond created, a gesture of goodwill exchanged and embraced. The remainder of Sunday and Monday drifted by in a delightful fog of eager expectation. I discovered myself organizing the home with an unusual spark of excitement, pondering over culinary creations. The gratitude towards David for his assistance with the fence had evolved into something deeper. It was a matter of cultivating this nascent bond, this unforeseen comfort that had gently woven itself into my existence. On Tuesday afternoon, David made his anticipated arrival. An effortless intimacy had blossomed between us in this moment. The task of reattaching the fence rails to the new post proved to be a swift endeavor. He guided me in ensuring they were level and secure, his instructions marked by clarity and patience. In less than 60 minutes, the task was completed. The barrier stood tall and resolute, a concrete manifestation of our collective endeavors. "There you have it, Linda," he remarked, his hands being wiped clean on a rag. "Good as new, perhaps even better." "It's flawless, David," I remarked, a true sense of achievement and appreciation washing over me. "Your support was indispensable to my success." I turned my gaze from the fence to him, locking onto his gentle eyes. "I appreciate all that you have done." "It is my pleasure, Linda." He leaned against the freshly repaired fence, exuding an air of relaxation and contentment. "Ah, the lasagna, let's delve into that, shall we? When would be a suitable time for you? And what of Jessica?" We reached an agreement on Friday evening. He mentioned that Jessica was eagerly anticipating it, having heard all about the fence project. A faint blush crept up my neck at that thought, curiosity piquing about what he might have shared with her, yet his effortless smile brought me a sense of reassurance. As he departed that day, our farewell carried an unmistakable weight, a distinct essence that lingered in the air. It had transcended mere neighborliness. An undercurrent of shared experience flowed between them, a new connection that had firmly taken root. As I stepped back into my home, a deep tranquility washed over me, yet there was also a subdued thrill. The fence was mended, indeed, but in that very act, something deeper had also been restored. A small fragment of my heart, a sliver of my capacity to connect, to experience, to anticipate the joy of simple moments, such as sharing a meal with new companions. My hands had ceased their trembling. Rather, they exuded a calm assurance, poised for whatever lay ahead. The world seemed to stretch a touch wider, to glow a shade brighter, all thanks to the kindness of my neighbor's husband, who had extended a helping hand. Friday descended upon us, draped in the gentle shades of an idyllic early summer twilight. I had devoted the majority of the afternoon spent in a joyful whirlwind of preparation. The lasagna, a cherished recipe of mine, was bubbling softly in the oven, its savory scent wafting through the home. I had prepared a generous salad, selected a fresh loaf of crusty Italian bread from the bakery, and even discovered a bottle of Chini. I had been diligently setting aside my resources. The modest dining table, having borne witness to countless solitary meals, was now prepared for 3, graced by a humble bouquet of daisies plucked from my garden. A wave of anxiety washed over me. I must confess, it had been ages since I had entertained anyone beyond kin. And never neighbors I was only beginning to understand on a more profound level. I adjusted the fabric of my modest blue dress for the 10th time, gazing at my reflection. I appeared pleasant, radiating joy. Even the creases of concern framing my eyes appeared somewhat gentler. Just as expected, the doorbell rang melodiously. A flutter stirred within my heart. With a deep breath, I swung the door open to reveal David and Jessica, their faces lit up with warm smiles. Jessica possessed a charm that radiated from her gentle features, her soft brown curls framing a kind face, while her eyes sparkled with warmth, crinkling at the corners whenever she smiled in a manner reminiscent of David's. She extended a bottle of wine. "Linda, we truly appreciate your hospitality," she said, her tone warm and sincere. "And David has shared with me what an incredible foreman you were on the fence project." I chuckled, sensing my nervousness begin to fade away. "He weaves tales with a generous spirit. Step inside, if you would." The evening unfolded with a grace that both astonished and enchanted me. Jessica possessed a warmth and approachability that mirrored David's, making conversation effortless. She was a retired educator brimming with captivating stories and a soft wit. Our conversation meandered through a landscape of topics, touching on the profound and the trivial alike. Engaging in the art of gardening, exploring the pages of books, staying attuned to local happenings, and reflecting on their recent journey to visit their daughter. The air was filled with a comfortable ease, devoid of any stilted pauses or contrived exchanges. It was reminiscent of cherished moments shared with familiar companions. David, in his own way, exuded a sense of ease and charm. He regaled us with a handful of amusing tales from his own DIY escapades throughout the years, bringing laughter to us both. Observing his interactions with Jessica, the effortless warmth and the depth of their shared past was truly delightful. Their partnership flowed with a soothing cadence, an unspoken connection that conveyed so much. There was no trace of discomfort, only a comforting warmth and sincere friendliness enveloped me. As they gathered around the dinner table, Jessica remarked, "David was genuinely delighted to lend a hand with your fence. Linda, he truly relishes having a project to dive into, and I believe he appreciated the companionship as well." Her gaze towards him was warm and tender. David wore a smile. "Collaborating with you, Linda, was a pleasure. It's a pleasure to make this connection." "It was for me as well," I replied, my eyes locking with his for a fleeting moment before shifting back to Jessica. "To be frank, I cannot express enough how much I valued it." The fence loomed before me, a monumental challenge akin to Everest itself. Jessica offered a knowing nod, her expression filled with understanding. "Ah, I see. Following my father's passing, my mother often remarked, the small details of our home loomed large. It's not merely about the task at hand, is it?" Indeed. A surge of gratitude washed over me as I acknowledged her understanding. The dialogue flowed effortlessly, skimming over lighter subjects before occasionally delving into deeper, more contemplative musings. We engaged in a conversation regarding the transformations occurring in the neighborhood, reflecting on how life reveals itself through unforeseen paths. I discovered that I was revealing more of myself than I typically would with new acquaintances, sharing snippets about Michael and my own path through grief and rediscovery. They absorbed every word with profound understanding, a gentle reverence in their demeanor. In their gaze, there was no trace of pity, only a profound understanding. David didn't overshadow the discussion, yet when he shared his thoughts, they carried a subtle depth of understanding. Echoing the insights he had shared during our time working on the fence, he emphasized the significance of a community where neighbors watch out for one another. He spoke of the deep appreciation he and Jessica held for the tranquility that enveloped their street. As we savored my lasagna, a dish I was relieved to see them both genuinely relish, the atmosphere felt warm and inviting. A wave of contentment enveloped me. This was the very thing I had longed for. I came to understand not only the bond of a partner, but also the effortless exchange with others, the sharing of meals, laughter, and tales. Following dinner, we retreat to the living room, glasses of wine in hand. The dialogue persisted, weaving seamlessly through the air. At one point, Jessica spoke of a book club she belonged to and, sensing my curiosity, extended an invitation for me to attend their upcoming meeting. "We are quite the amiable group, Linda. I believe you would find it delightful." "I would truly cherish that, Jessica," I replied, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the invitation. My sincere gratitude. As the evening waned and David and Jessica readied themselves to depart, a subtle ache of regret stirred within me at the thought of its conclusion. "Linda, this was simply delightful," Jessica remarked, enveloping me in a warm embrace at the threshold. "The cuisine was exquisite, and the companionship even better. We must do this again." "I'd like that very much," I replied, my heart brimming with joy. David grasped my hand, his hold steady and inviting. "Thank you, Linda, for all that you have done." His eyes radiated that familiar warmth, yet there was an added depth, a glimmer of true camaraderie. "The fence appears quite splendid, I must say. Unyielding and steadfast." "I owe it all to you," I remarked, a smile gracing my lips. Once they departed, I remained in the stillness of my living room, the faint aroma of garlic and wine hanging in the atmosphere. The house exuded a sense of presence, as if it were alive with memories. It felt abundant, brimming with the glow of budding companionship, the melody of shared joy, the essence of human bonds. I approached the window, peering into the depths of the night. The faint silhouette of the mended fence line emerged before me, a sturdy and reassuring presence in the twilight. It stood there, merely a fence, an uncomplicated assembly of wood and concrete. Yet it had transformed into something far greater. It served as a catalyst, a bridge connecting disparate worlds. The tremor I experienced on that initial day when David extended his offer of assistance. The tremor of unexpected emotion, that wave of surprise, had faded into the background long ago. In its stead was a profound appreciation and a serene happiness. The husband of my neighbor had extended an offer of assistance. What transpired next left me not only trembling. It had transformed me irrevocably. It had unlocked a passage deep within me, a passage to connection, to community, to the simple yet profound beauty of human kindness. It dawned on me that the journey of self-discovery frequently arrives in the most surprising forms. Occasionally, it manifests as a shaky fence post accompanied by a neighbor ready to offer assistance. It revealed to me that in the hushed nooks of existence, at the most unexpected moments, connections can be crafted that repair more than mere boundaries. They possess the ability to heal souls as well. As I settled into bed that night, a deep and restful slumber enveloped me, more profound than I had experienced in years. My heart feels not merely mended, but also beautifully, hopefully alive.